Holy smokes, ladies and gentlemen, we have a major recession warning coming for you here in this video. The yield curve is almost completely uninverted. What does this mean, historically speaking? The yield curve being uninverted? Well, we've not heard about that for a long time. The story's been the inverted yield curve. Well, it's not actually the inversion that hurts, it's the uninversion, in which we're seeing that right now. Stocks are taking a move lower into the end of trading, as well as you do have some fear assets that are outperforming, and I think you need to hear about it. Now, AMC stock, we're also going to get into that one as well. Don't think we forgot about good old AMC. The work is cut out for us here in this video. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Source your comment, questions, or concerns down below in the comment section. So, first things first, guys, stocks are down big time today. We're really not getting all too much news out there. There's really no bad news to react to. If anything, there's actually a little bit of good news here. Israel officials have now confirmed that 2 Americans have been released by Hamas from the Gaza Strip. Apparently, these 2 individuals were from Chicago, so we'll see how they were treated, things of that nature. I'm sure just fine if they release them. But this is actually a little bit of good news, but the markets are not taking it all too positively today. Now, some of your fear assets are outperforming. If you take a look at TLT is up 0.5%. The dollar is pretty flat on the day. But gold is up 0.3% today. Gold was up a lot more, as you can see from this wick, until this news came out. So you would think if gold's falling, great. The fear asset is not doing as well now today. You would think maybe other assets like stocks would start to do a little bit better. No, not at all. Stocks are still falling into the end of the trading day with really, no signs of stopping anytime soon. We have a major technical level of support coming here at this downtrending line. That's going to put you around 351.91 on the QQQ. That's going to be your next big level to be watching for. This is causing downside in stocks like in AMC as well. AMC does look still really good relative to what's happening out there. But if you look at other things as well, like the KRE, the regional bank ETF, this is down almost 4% today, following some pretty disappointing earnings that we have just seen so far from regional banks. There's not a one to specifically call out. They've all been a little bit disappointing. Your big banks even had some disappointing earnings, like Morgan Stanley. Now, KRE being down 4% is a problem. You don't want to see this banking crisis come back, but it looks like it is starting to. Now, if you look at 30-year treasuries today, they are down about 2 basis points. 10-year treasuries down 7.5 basis points. So this is actually good. This should actually probably be having a positive effect to stocks. But it's not. That's where the problem really comes into hand. We've seen this correlation where rates are going higher, stocks are going lower. Rates going lower, stocks should be going higher. That's not happening, even when we got some good news out of this Israel conflict. Let me just tell you right now, that is not good, okay? Now let's look at the yield curve inversion, which is actually almost uninverted. So this is the 10 and the 2-year yield curve. So what's happening here? The yield curve was just fine in 2021. It started to trend negative. It actually went inverted, so negative, meaning that your 2-year bond paid you out more than the 10-year bond. It actually went negative back here in about June of 2022. It was negative ever since. It hit the low in June of 2023, about 1 year later. You've started to uninvert. What can you see very clearly from this chart? From this chart, it's pretty clear to see. Once you are uninverted and then you go, or once you are inverted, then you go uninverted, meaning once this blue line is under the black line, you go positive again, you tend to pretty shortly thereafter head into a recession, especially if it goes quickly. You're talking 1 to 4 months is usually when you enter into a recession. The recession are the gray lines in here. this is just not great. You're only inverted 16 basis points now. You were inverted 1%. You have uninverted this yield curve inversion by about 80%. 80%. So this could be a sign that a recession is just around the corner. It makes it even trickier as we are heading into earnings season and full steam ahead next week. We've started earnings season this week. You know, you had your Netflix, you had your Tesla, you had credit card companies, you had some banks, but next week is when you're going to get your Amazons, your Microsofts, your Googles, right? Your Metas, all of those companies will be reporting next week. And this puts us in a very tricky situation heading into the next earnings season. Now, the 10-year and the 3-month yield curve is doing the same thing. It is uninverting. At the low, this thing was inverted the most it's ever been, ever, at 1.88%. Now it's only inverted 62 basis points. You are rapidly uninverting on the yield curve. And this one is the same. Once you uninvert again, you're usually within months of actually going into a recession. Not years, but months before you go into recession. So not exactly the greatest things that we're seeing here. And again, with the reaction in equity markets, it just doesn't look good. Stocks down 1.5% today, even going lower in after hours. Guys, stocks are in a really bad spot right now. If you are not hedged out in your portfolio, you probably want to come join the trading community because we are hedging. You can get a little bit of insight on potentially what hedges might work, what might not work. You can come ask questions, come learn over there. That's a great place to be. Link down below in the description of this video. But overall, I am not excited about what I am seeing with stocks. Now, if you take a look at AMC stocks down about 2.89%. At one point today, it was positive. It looks like you got some rejection here at the 8-day moving average. That's been pretty common. That 8-day moving average was at $9.72. You're falling back down. You're trending along this downtrending line of support. This is connecting the lows that you've seen even back here from January of 2022. You could connect it higher, and you're basically going to come to some degree to the peak of the January rally. But you're kind of holding that as support. That is great news. That line is going to be right here at about $8.65 or so. So there is a little bit of cushion here still on any downside. Overall, AMC stock does look good on the charts. The MACD wants to go positive. You're only negative about 1 here on the MACD. And the RSI is sitting at 41.59. But whatever happens in the broader markets is going to push or pull AMC stock lower. AMC stock is popping up a little bit here in after hours, up about 0.5%. Earnings are confirmed on November 8th. So that is going to be here Wednesday. Like 3 Wednesdays from now. So quite a bit of time before AMC earnings. I think the markets are full steam ahead heading into earnings season, and the markets are just not liking what we are seeing so far. Now let's get into some of the other things you need to know with AMC stock today. Again, I do want to say there was no data that came out, nothing that moved the markets in and of themselves. It was just simple. I mean, things don't look good. Geopolitical tensions, looks like you're heading into a recession. You got all of these different things. Student loan repayments already kicked in. Earnings so far have not been great. There's not a huge reason to own stocks, especially if the 10-year treasury is sitting at about 5%. That is just not a great position to be in. Now, if you look at the options that expired in the money here today on the call side, you got about 32,436. Puts that expired in the money about 22,000. Calls out the money 171,000. Puts out the money 104,000. For next week, the option activity looks pretty similar to what we are seeing this week. I think a lot of the options for this week are probably going to get rolled over into next week, but the ratio here looks really good to start off the new trading week once we do get through this weekend and start off on Monday. You got 9,000 calls currently in the money, almost 46,000 calls out the money, 7,000 puts in the money, and 26,000 puts that are out of the money. So a decent amount of option activity here for next week. And again, I think these numbers are probably going to balloon much higher once we actually do start next week's trading week. If you take a look at the Ortex data here for AMC stock, you have a short score of 58, $139.5 million worth of short positions, estimated short interest on free float at 7.54%, free float out on loan at 10.58%, shares out on loan 20.92 million, days to cover 1.11, cost to borrow 1.33, utilization of 47.13. So not too much is actually changing with the data. It's very unvolatile. If you take a look at some of the cost to borrow fees are up a little bit from what we reported earlier in the day. Cost to borrow max at 6.17%, cost to borrow average 1.4%, cost to borrow minimum sitting at about 1%, 7.71% short interest of free float, and 15.24 million shares that are currently sold short. So, you got to take these numbers with a big grain of salt. I think it is very positive. AMC stock is just holding up well throughout all of this, turbulence that we have seen in the markets. AMC is just doing its thing. Down 3% today, roughly 2% or so. I will take that any day of the week when the NASDAQ closes down 1.5%. Okay. That is a good day in my book. Okay. If you look at the put to call ratio, another big reason why I'm so bullish on AMC over the next couple of weeks, it's sitting at 0.75. You're now in a more normal range for really any given stock, but especially, what we had seen for AMC. There's more calls now than there are puts. That is typical for, again, any normal stock. This is a more in-line puts call ratio. This is actually lower than what you're seeing today on the markets, where the puts call ratio is like 1.2, 1.3. AMC stock is definitely not seeing the same degree of bearishness you were seeing before that court proceeding, at least with the option activity. The shorts are still the shorts. They're still in their positions. Nothing has really changed there, but things do look a little bit better on that front. And again, AMC stock's probably going to hold up support around this downtrending line of, support. Hopefully, if you fall under that, then I think your lows are in at $7.05. I think you could trade down to that level if you did see a lot of weakness in our markets. It's hard to say how much weakness or when or why. But if we do continue to see that weakness, you're probably going to trend down lower. Next week's going to be a big week as well. We'll break that down a little bit more in the video, probably coming out tomorrow morning, around noontime. You guys definitely want to stay tuned for that one. But overall, it was not a bad day for AMC. We really didn't have any news. AMC did confirm their earnings today. We really didn't have any negative news out there as well. Actually had some positive news with this Israel conflict. This Israel conflict could cause 20, 30, 40% downside for our markets. It all depends on oil. The Strait of Hormuz, really controlled by Iran and Saudi Arabia. 20, 30% of the oil on any given day flows through there in oil tankers. If they want to cut that off, they can, and that would be a big problem for our markets, for inflation, for economic activity, all of that. So you definitely want to be watching this situation like a hawk. But today was a pretty good day for AMC. I think we'll end it off on that note. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and source your comments, questions, or concerns down below in the comments section. You guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.